Fabio was about to board a flight from Rome to London. It was an important journey, perhaps the most important of his life. After years of tireless work, sacrifices, and struggles to continue the family winery, he had finally reached the turning point. The expansion of his small empire in the heart of Umbria towards the international market was now within reach. London represented the future, an open door to a world of opportunities. Fabio should have felt euphoric, satisfied. Yet, as he waited to board the plane, a deep melancholy gripped him. Before continuing, subscribe to our channel and activate the bell. That flight wasn't just an opportunity for professional growth. There was something much deeper that stirred his soul, something he had never completely let go of. It was a memory that kept him tied to the past, something that, no matter how much he tried to ignore it, always came back to the surface: the memory of Rita. They got married young, full of dreams and hopes for the future. Rita had been his great love, his point of reference. Together, they had imagined a perfect life, made of travel, discoveries, and eternal love. But one morning, everything had collapsed. Fabio had woken up and Rita was no longer there. No trace of her, no letter, no message. She had disappeared into thin air, leaving Fabio immersed in an endless desperation. Fabio had looked everywhere for her. He had contacted the police, hired private investigators, and involved friends and family. But nothing. Every attempt to find her had proved futile. Rita seemed to have vanished, as if she had never existed. Days had turned into months, months into years, and Fabio, in the end, had to give in to the idea that she would never return. But despite everything, his heart had never stopped hoping, looking for her in the faces of the people he met on the street, in the stations, in the airports. Every woman with hair like his made him jump. A part of him had never really accepted her disappearance. Now, as he settled into his seat in business class, Fabio felt tired, not only because of the long journey ahead of him, but also because of the emotional burden he had been carrying around for so long. He looked out the window, observing the clear blue sky that stretched to the horizon. The plane was about to take off, and the voice of the flight attendant announcing the safety instructions resounded mechanically in the air. Fabio listened distractedly, his thoughts still trapped in the past. Suddenly, something startled him. He looked up and his heart skipped a beat. The sight hit him like a punch in the stomach. There, a few feet away from him, was a woman. "It can't be her," he said to himself. "I'm starting to hallucinate." But the woman he had been searching for 10 years, the woman he thought he would never see again, was right there, in the flesh. She was wearing the flight crew uniform, her hair neatly tied back like she always did. Fabio held his breath. He couldn't believe his eyes. After all that time, Rita was there, in front of him. Rita didn't seem to notice his presence right away. She continued to do her job with the efficiency she always had. But when their eyes finally met, Fabio saw a flash of recognition in her gaze. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Fabio's heart was beating wildly. He wanted to get up and join her, tell her everything he had never stopped feeling. But before he could do anything, Rita looked away and continued doing her job as if nothing had happened. Fabio was paralyzed. His mind was a whirlwind of emotions. How could it be possible? After 10 years of silence, the woman he had loved more than anything else was in front of him, but she was acting like a stranger. Fabio couldn't understand. He was happy and angry at the same time. How could he pretend that nothing had happened? During the flight, he couldn't take his eyes off her. Every gesture, every movement reminded him of the moments spent together, the laughter, the endless conversations, the shared dreams. But those same gestures were now filled with a pain that suffocated him. Fabio tried to stay calm, but the truth was that he wanted answers. Why had she disappeared? Where had she been? And why did she act as if she didn't know him? As the onboard service began, Rita inevitably approached him. Fabio could see the tension on her face as she tried to keep a neutral expression. "Can I offer you something, sir?" she asked in a controlled voice, but Fabio could sense the tremor hidden in her words. "Rita, it's me, Fabio," she murmured in a low but intense voice, full of emotion. "Where have you been? Why did you disappear?" Rita looked at him for a moment, and Fabio saw that her eyes were full of pent-up emotion, but she looked away once more. "Not here, Fabio. Not now," she whispered, almost begging him not to insist. Fabio felt his blood boiling, frustration growing inside him. He wanted to get up, take Rita by the shoulders, and force her to explain everything, but he couldn't. Not there, not at that moment. He had to wait. When the plane landed in London, Fabio decided to wait until all the other passengers had disembarked. Rita tried to avoid his gaze, but she knew she couldn't escape him for much longer. Once the cabin was empty, she approached him, her gaze serious. "I have a lot to explain to you," Rita said with a deep sigh, "but I don't know where to start." "I just want to know the truth, Rita," Fabio said, his voice thick with pain. "I never stopped loving you, and I never stopped looking for you. Why did you disappear without saying anything? Where have you been?" Rita looked down, visibly torn. "I had no choice," she began, her voice breaking. "My father was in trouble. Dangerous people threatened me, Fabio. If I had stayed, they would have hurt you, your family. I had to disappear to protect you." Fabio listened in silence, in disbelief. His mind tried to make sense of those words. Disappearing without saying anything? Was that the best way to protect myself? He asked, his voice cracking with pain and anger. "There was no other solution," Rita said, tears finally starting to fall. "I loved you too much to put you in danger. I did what I thought was right." Fabio was silent for a long moment. He didn't know what to think, what to say. A part of him still loved her desperately, but 10 years of pain and uncertainty don't easily erase. "Let's get in a taxi," Fabio said. "Let's talk about this somewhere else." They took a taxi to a hotel near the airport. Fabio sensed that there was still something Rita wasn't telling him. Once they were seated in a quiet bar, they ordered something to drink. "We're here now," Fabio said, looking into her eyes. "Tell me everything. I don't want to live in the shadow of this past anymore." Rita lowered her head, then sighed deeply. "It wasn't just to protect you. My father owed a huge debt to very dangerous people. They forced me to work for them, to transport money, information, to use my position as a flight attendant to do what they wanted." Fabio leaned forward, his face tense. "You've been working for them all this time?" Rita nodded, tears starting to fall again. "I didn't mean to, Fabio. I didn't mean to involve you, but they had me under control. I couldn't run away." Before Fabio could answer, Rita's phone vibrated on the table. She looked at it and went white. "Who is it?" Fabio asked, sensing danger in the air. "I don't know, but they won't leave me alone." Suddenly, Two men in dark suits entered the bar, their eyes settling on Fabio and Rita. "We have to go," Fabio said urgently. He grabbed Rita's hand and dragged her out of the bar quickly, without thinking twice. The streets of London were crowded, the chaos of the city contrasting with the palpable tension between them. The footsteps of the two men in dark suits chasing them echoed behind them, making Fabio's heart beat faster. But he couldn't let fear take over, not now. He had just found Rita again, and he wasn't going to let anyone take her away from him again. He turned the corner into a narrow side street, where the streetlights cast long shadows on the walls. Fabio pushed her gently against the wall, out of sight of passers-by. Their breathing was labored, and Rita was trembling under his touch, but it was no longer the time to run. They had to face what was coming, together. Fabio looked into her eyes, those eyes that had tormented him for 10 long years. Then, without saying a word, he approached her and kissed her. A long, deep kiss, full of all the emotions he had repressed for so long. His lips tried to convey to her everything that words had never been able to explain: the pain, the anger, but above all the love that had never faded. Rita, initially surprised, let herself go. Her hands grabbed Fabio's shoulders as if he were the only hold in a storm. The world around them seemed to stop for a moment. The voices and noise of the city disappeared, and in that moment, only the two of them existed, reunited after a decade of silence and separation. When he pulled away from her, Fabio caressed her face, wiping away a tear that was about to fall. His eyes were fixed on hers, full of determination and love. "I don't care what happens," he said in a firm but sweet voice. "I just know that I will never let you go again. No matter what your past is, no matter what we have to face, we are together now, and no one will separate us." Rita looked at him, unable to hold back her tears. She nodded, her voice cracking with emotion. "Fabio, He interrupted her. "No more need to say. We'll get through this together. You're not alone anymore." He took her hand and held it tightly. It didn't matter how dangerous the path ahead of them was. They were ready to fight, together. Did you like this story? Leave a comment below. Thanks for watching the video till the end, and see you next story.